Hello, how are you? Okay,
I'm
gotcha.
good. Let me do a quick intro because this is actually the first time we're doing Scene Stealers, so it's very exciting to have you as the first guest. Um, but to our EW audience, this is Scene Stealers. It's a new show that we're doing about like when you watch shows, especially new ones, and see those new actors on screen and are like, they're doing so well. I have to go follow them on Instagram immediately. So it's definitely that sort of vibe. And I just like ran right through Generation as soon as I got it. So I'm so excited to have you, Chase, here talking to me
Yes,
about the show.
I'm so excited to be here. So excited to be here. That was such a great intro.
Yeah. Well, so everyone else can get to know you. My first question would be just if you could tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got from Detroit to Harvard to HBO Max.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I was as a kid I was very very shy. So my mom kind of forced me into theater as a way to get me to speak essentially. So I did that, but it was kind of just in the background as in chorus, like all throughout in the chorus all throughout growing up. And then it wasn't until college that I kind of started, toying with the idea that I would maybe like go be on the other side of the camera and kind of I moved more into like the film sphere. I studied film production, and have always loved writing as like a method to. I grew up in a very like at the suburbs of Detroit, which were very insular and very kind of stifling and kind of monotonous. So I turned to writing and like kind of building world building through these kind of crazy characters too as a way to escape and make my life a little spicier. So I definitely always had that itch, and then I studied film in college, and that kind of opened me up to the idea of writing and directing and acting as well. Yeah, and then it was after graduation, it was 2 grueling years of a big graveyard of self tapes until I got Generation, which has been my biggest part yet. And yeah, it's such a joy to play.
Yeah, how that happened? Because I heard you have kind of a unique story of how you got on Generation.
Yeah, so I wasn't actually in the initial crop of the cast. So I was a latecomer, and I got this self tape for the part of Riley like a day before they were about to start production on the pilot, which was wild that I came into the mix so late. But I was actually had a small part on another show, Betty, on HBO, where I was kind
Hmm.
of like a skater girl, like in the back, very much in the background of this show, and I I had just filmed my self tape right as I was going for my day of work for Betty. And so I was waiting to hear waiting to hear my generation. And that's why I was like on my phone, like incessantly, even though this was like the first day of work I had had in so long. And I was so excited to be there, but I was just like praying that like something happened with generation and I got a call back. And actually I had an allergic reaction while I was on the set of Betty. I ate some hazelnuts. I'm deathly allergic to at craft services, and I was in the hospital, and the second AD was like, "Where's that girl from the background? We need her in the background of the shot." And I was like, "I'm sorry, I'm going into anaphylactic shock," and it was like on literally on the hospital bed that I got the call back. I got the call. I got the part, the actual part for
Yeah.
Generation. So I like literally like 12 hours later, I was on a flight to LA to play Riley. It was a big whirlwind, but I feel like it works like in waves. There was like momentum from that last job that gave me the confidence to do my tapes for Riley.
Oh my God. That's such a wild thing. But I think too, uh, it's hard to believe that it was such like a last minute casting because I feel like anyone who watches the show like can't see the role without you. Like and maybe had some issues with separating like the role from you. So I do wonder like how how much are you like Riley and how would you describe her and were you like her at all when you were in high school?
so I was really so nothing like Riley in high school, and I wish I just was 1% as cool and confident and just self-assured as she can be at times. And I in high school I was like very much, like I said, like I retreated to like writing to express myself, and like I felt like myself like when I was like at home and with my siblings, and we would make these like crazy home movies where could be weird and like crazy, and I would like come home from Austin Powers and like recite all the lines to like my whole family at the dinner table. But then like when I got to school, I was like very much like conform and be like a good student, and just like be very serious and just like act normal and act like everyone else. And yeah, it was a very white, like it was a very white suburb, and so I it was that other element of just like blend in and don't be different, which Riley has none of. Yeah, so but yeah, it wasn't until like after high school that I kind of grew into my own, and I think that kind of informed Riley much more. And also, I spent the first 7 months of quarantine with my mom, living with my mom back in the suburbs of Detroit. So I feel like regressing into like my high school frame of mind in my high school bedroom like also very much helped. And I was like, yeah, I read all these books that I read in high school to like tap into that angst.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to take a second to say that to acknowledge the comments, and also I want to ask you guys if you have any questions. You can use the question tool, or just ask them in the comments. If something looks cool, just continue to ask it. So it's top of my mind to ask. We'll be doing that at the end. But the next thing I wanted to ask in terms of Riley, like how much impact do you have on her style? Because I feel like your hair has become so signature with Riley, and Riley's got a
Yeah.
very like individual sense of fashion, and you
I
of course
love
have fashion in your family.
Right. Yes, I love that. I mean, from the get-go, actually the initial plan was to like dye Riley's hair blue. Like the inspiration was like Billie Eilish, like Riley wants to be Billie Eilish. And which was terrifying. I was like, "Oh my God, that is just it," which was a little scary for me, but I don't know. I Gen Z, they're so like I love the how innovative like kids get with their hairstyles, and I saw like the blonde tassels kind of like on a lot of girls' Instagram accounts, and that I love so much. And I just feel like Riley has that certain mode of self-expression that is like through her fashion and through her hair, because she is has that sort of social confidence, and it is a version of escapism. I mean, as we'll dive into more in future episodes, she has this like really, really rocky home life, but she is kind of part of this middle class and has access to like all this culture, and so she is really like I wanted her to be like really fashionable and stylish. And Shirley Carrada, who's the costume designer, is incredible, and she is constantly sourcing these like very obscure designers that I feel like is what all like Gen Z is about, is like all these obscure designers that no one's ever heard of, but make these really like original pieces. So she brought a lot of that, and then I brought Heaven by Marc Jacobs. I showed her that because I thought that was so. I thought that so captured like the spirit of generation, and like the Mortine Inks shirt, and even the Alienation generation. We were like, is that a little too on the nose? But yeah, I feel like that kind of like self-referential, like talking about like how angsty we are, and it is like so emblematic of like Gen Z and their discussions of like mental health, and how casual you can bring up such a deep topic like mental health, within the bounds of like how Gen Zs communicate with each other.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, like we got to get to it. I'm sure everyone in the comments have been waiting for it. We got to talk about Riley and Greta. The first thing I want to ask is, what do you think attracts Riley to Greta?
Great question. I mean, it is like so central to Riley's character, which is why I love this question so much. And I think Riley is someone who is so emotionally guarded in a way that she has no idea how emotionally, like the depths of her kind of trauma that have forced these barriers around her, which I think is like so important to how she interacts, and she goes out into the world, and with Nathan, her best friend, she still has all these guards up and secrets she doesn't share. And with Chester, she can be this fun, crazy personality, but she still, like, has this like soft side that she doesn't reveal to anyone, and personally, like, doesn't even have access to herself all the time necessarily, because with her mom, she has this like prickly persona. She's just, sending out all these signals of like. So I think with Greta, she is finally able to be like her emotional self, and she's finally able to access this very like tender and soft like side of herself, and she's able. It's a romance that like has like effectively unleashed like Riley being able to be in touch with her emotions, and actually, makes her feel some type of way.
Yeah, I love it. Do you think that Greta is the first girl that Riley's considered dating, or like
Definitely.
is maybe attracted to?
Definitely. Definitely. I think so. Maybe not attracted to, but
Mm,
definitely the first girl where she has imagined, letting down her emotional boundaries, and feeling like very much herself. Because, as we see before, she kind of wields her sexuality in a very defensive sort of way, and yeah,
yeah,
doesn't let people in.
yeah. I love that they're, regardless of what their relationship is, they're helping each other grow so much.
Yes. Yes.
Um, of course, is it Griley or Ryletta?
Oh my God, the people are coming at me for proposing either. I want to let people decide for themselves. People have proposed Loreno, which is a combination between Moreno, Greta's last name, and Lowe, Riley's last
Mhm.
name. So that one's pretty good. And which one do you like?
I was saying that I like Griley.
I like Riley too. I liked Riley from the get-go. That seemed like the intuitive, like that seems like the right one, but
Yeah.
people think it's like, it sounds like gross or something, but I think it's cute. Riley. I like Riley.
It
Everyone's saying
sounds
please not
like
Ryletta.
I feel like
But
Griley sounds like, I don't know, like fetch, like a word people would try to make happen, but
yes, yes, but it doesn't necessarily catch on. But that's the point of these names. Riley. I like
yeah.
it.
Um, well, what has the fan response been like, especially considering that you're in this ship situation that people are obsessed with?
I mean, I think from both sides, people seem to really relate to this sort of love story between Greta and Riley. It's like very much like a push and a pull, and something that everyone can kind of project themselves into, whether it's through Greta's perspective or through Riley's perspective. It is like this universal like inability to communicate how you're actually feeling, and that's what's so frustrating, I think, about Greta and Riley's story is like it is they just why can't these two people just love each other, like, and it's just so it just really just like tugs at your heart, because if they had the devices to have an honest conversation about their emotions, like they could work this out. They just don't at this age, like they just, and it's not even relative, it's not even specific to this age. It's just all it's a universal feeling that, like,
Totally.
without the line of communication, it just crumbles.
Were you ever a big shipper? Like, do you feel like if you weren't a part of the show and were watching it, you would be super invested in Riley and Greta too?
Definitely. I would be screaming at the screen. I mean, even when I watch it, I know people have a hard time watching, their own work, but I am like screaming when I watch the scenes, and obviously it's loaded when I watch it, but yeah, I would I'm definitely Team Griley.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I want to get into Riley herself a little bit. I see her as the glue between the kids. Like, I feel like she's cool with everyone. Do you think that weighs on her though? Is that something that we're slowly seeing, that like she sort of takes in everyone's problems, but no one's really like acknowledging hers?
Yeah. I mean, I think whether that aspect weighs on her or not, I think she likes kind of being the one to the having the auspice of like, I have my shit together. What's your problem? What can I help you with? And I think it is like a certain burden that she puts on herself, but it's also a deflection mechanism to to make herself trick herself into believing that things are calm and controlled and collected in her life, when really that's not necessarily the case at all. And I think like her photography is another method of kind of just pointing outwards and never kind of reflecting internally to see like what she doesn't necessarily want to see. It's kind of that sort of the mentality of like being the glue and being capturing things and like creating this nostalgia of the group is like a way to kind of shove your problems underneath the rug a little bit. So I think yes, I mean definitely it definitely weighs on her, but how much she's aware of that is another question.
Yeah. And I think definitely looking at where we left off, I believe episode 7, it's like a big moment of like her making her mistakes and kind of figuring out like who she is. And with that, like, what can you tease about the finale and maybe even part 2 of Generation? I can say that I watched the finale, and without spoilers, it's so good. I
Oh,
really enjoyed it.
I'm
But yeah,
so
if you could
glad you like it.
tease anything about that in part 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting about how it was left with part 7, I think you see like a breakdown from Riley and a lot of the characters from Chester and even from Greta in a way. I think like just going forward, I mean, to me, like the tone of the show over the course of the first 7 episodes changes so much, and as soon as you're able to spend time with these characters and see them go through this journey, it's like it becomes so much more of like an emotional type show where you're able to sit with these characters. And I think there's just so much, because it's going to be a, can I say that, there's going to be a
Yeah.
lot more episodes. There is that time to like spend with the characters where you're able to just have like these quiet moments, where you're really able to see like the not like social presenting side of these characters. You're able to sit with them, and so I think that's something that's so special, because all these characters are so specific and going through their own really sort of interesting and turbulent things. So and especially for Riley, there's a lot more to come in the second half with what actually the specifics of what she's going through. And
Yeah.
it's been so fun. So I can't wait for people to see.
I can't wait to see it. I like it couldn't come any sooner. I don't know when it's coming, but I'm very excited for it. Um, I want to reiterate, since if anyone's new in the audience, this is EW Scene Sealers with Chase Sweet Wonders. You guys have been sending in questions like crazy, so I think we're gonna get to that right now. And hopefully they're I feel good about it. And it's not sort of a lot of simping in the comments. Love to see it though.
Love
All
it.
right, let's
Love
see.
it.
Let's see. Okay, here's a fun one. What have you been enjoying at the moment? Books, films, TV shows, etc. This is from Rachel V6H.
Oh wow. Hmm. I just watched I just watched Happiest Season with Justice, actually, who plays Chester. We had a little date night, movie night. That was very fun. I love like watching movies, and sometimes I found it hard to watch movies like while we're still in the thrusts of filming and production. So watching stuff is kind of distracting when you're so like immersed in this generation world. But it's the big love of mine. I just watched Nomadland by Chloe Zhao with Frances McDormand, and that was so incredible. And the type of realism that she creates in The Rider too, which is her first one of her earlier movie, is just so I've been loving. And what else? I've been reading one of my favorite playwrights, Annie Baker. I've been
Oh yeah.
reading it. Do you know Annie Baker?
She has the play. I know of her. She has the play
Yes.
that's like The Audience or something like that.
The Flick, it's set in a movie theater. That's one of
Yeah.
my favorites, and I'm rereading that because I like to read plays, when I'm acting too, because it's fun creatively to like kind of fill in the space around the dialogue, and I think it's a fun exercise. Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been watching.
I mean, so here's the thing. You mentioned happiest season, open the floodgates. Riley or Harper?
Oof. Oh my God, this is super controversial, right? But I have to say Riley. Not only did she share the name of my character, but I kind of gotta say Riley. Their
Oh my
chemistry was
God.
insane.
I know. It was so
Yeah,
good.
it was so good.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, okay, this is oh, well, you know what? Let's see. Um oh, okay. What was your reaction to episode 7?
When Well, episode 7, I mean, when I first read it, I was like heaving. I was like rocking back and forth. Also, one of my friends, Eli Wilson Pelton, who I actually went to school with, wrote the episode. So just knowing that like this amazing guy that I'm friends with penned this beautiful script was so exciting. Shout out to Eli. But also, I mean, I kid you not, I was screaming that entire episode. Yeah, it is. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. I mean, same. I'm seeing in the comments a little bit. People want to know if you watched the show The Wilds on Amazon.
I haven't gotten a chance to watch The Wilds, but I did Community. I was mentioned Community Theater, but Sarah Pigeon, who plays one of the girls in The Wilds, I actually was one of my only allies in Community Theater. We got along very well back then. So I have to watch it. Once this finishes productions, I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, dope. This is from Ceruleansky, I think is your name. But it's what's your favorite thing about Riley?
That is hard. I mean, my favorite thing about Riley and playing Riley is kind of, something that might be a conflict within Riley herself, but her, how she's able to be kind of present different sides of herself with different people, I think is like so human and so natural to how we play with how we are in different relationships. And I think, being able to present those multiple sides, like a more tender side with Greta, and a more kind of boring like side with Nathan, and a more fun side with Chester, and then the pricklier side of their parents. And I think just that kind of like dynamism within a character is like so human. Yeah.
I also want to say that it's Cerulean Sky. I just read it super fast. Let's see what else is here. We got that. Okay. From Riley's Greta, what's your favorite scene to film?
Riley's Greta, shout out. They have great content on Riley's Greta. My favorite scene to film, I mean, honestly, the most fun scene, the pool scene in episode 7 was such a blast. I mean, we all were at this motel in the middle of nowhere. till like 5 a.m. multiple nights, and getting in that pool. There's something about like being in the water and like being in another, having like another element thrown at you that like completely takes like the work out of and the pressure kind of off of everything, because you're just like, you're all, a ton of kids are like in this like motel pool together, and it was just so, we were like having such a blast, and everyone was just like improvising and like screaming at each other, and it was so fun. Riley gets dared to give a lap dance to Nathan in that scene, actually, which actually eventually got cut. Unfortunately, probably better than it did, but it was just so fun. Everyone's like truth or dare. It felt like very, very organic to shoot that.
Yeah. The other thing I love too is when Riley and Greta are running with the wine bottle and it just flies into the pool. I feel like that was very yeah. People are asking, are we ever going to see you on Twitter?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I'm already overwhelmed by social media. I don't know about delving into the Twitter sphere. But maybe one day. Not right now though.
Natalie Roos asked, what's your favorite music right now?
Ooh, my gosh. I've been listening to, I'm a big fan of Pop Smoke. Who's this rapper? I love Pop Smoke. So I've been very into that. Honestly, I've been listening to King Princess like nonstop. I'm on a kick right now. But I listen to a lot of like music that helps me get into Riley frame of mind, like especially just like on my way to set, driving to set. So that's a lot of like Grimes, FKA Twigs, Kelsey Lou, just a lot of like powerful ladies.
That's awesome. I feel like King Princess too is probably helpful for Riley.
Very, very much. Yes.
Let's see.
Someone said Clario. Yes, I'm listening to so much Clario.
Oh,
yeah. Soccer Mommy also just started. Yeah. All the ladies.
How about Cyber Juan? What was let's say funniest thing on set?
Funniest. Oh my gosh. Okay. This was so. In the coming episode, all the characters are together, and we are kind of, talking about inclusive places in California. I'm really trying hard on this, but inclusive places in California where like gays are celebrated.
Yeah.
And as we were filming that scene, it was in the middle of my line, and we're basically saying that where we are right now is like very conservative. I mean, the show is set in a very kind of conservative part of California. And someone, as we were filming, and this group of queer actors are doing their acting, I was saying my line, and a car passed by and screamed, I don't know if we can I say this?
You did, you're good,
screamed, like so loud at the top of their lungs, and everyone just turned and like everyone just went with it because it was so fitting for them to be in this conservative part of California and to get like completely like chirped at from this like aggressive passerby. So, and everyone like burst out laughing, but like also like folded it into like how they played the character. So that was a wild like coincidence that happened on set. That was very funny.
Yeah. I like that you also fit in like another good teaser for the finale.
Yes,
but we gotta wrap things up. I want to say thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you, Marcus. This was so fun. I'm honored to be your first scene stealer.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, again, this has been Scene Stealers. You can see Chase as Riley on Generation. The finale for part 1 is this Thursday. You guys need to watch it. You're gonna love it. But once again, thanks so much, Chase.
Thank you, Marcus. This is so fun.
All right, see you later.
Bye, guys.